we interrupt this watch along to talk to you about the latest with Rob Edwards and the Wolves job. And the plot is thickening literally as we're sat here. Round 15 is live. Obviously, it started last night. And we're into the early games now. And we've had this official statement from Middlesbrough now. Obviously, this all started rumbling, didn't it? We had Vitor Pereira, the Wolves manager. Wolves parted company with him after the last round of Premier League games. Then there was a heavy move on Gary O'Neill in the betting markets. And then the information we kind of got was that Gary O'Neill ruled himself out of it. Then all of a sudden you have Middlesbrough kind of pointing their attention at Rob Edwards. And I saw the, was it the presser for the midweek game? Possibly. I have to watch a lot of press conferences just when I'm editing and stuff. And Rob Edwards was very clearly asked about the Wolves job, and he kind of gave, the sort of non-answer. The basic wording was, I'm the Middlesbrough manager, I'm concentrating on managing Middlesbrough. He didn't at any point say either I'm staying at Middlesbrough or I'm not interested in the Wolves job should I get approached about it. Then, I think this is Thursday, possibly. Forgive me if I got my timeline wrong. It's been a 3-game week, been all over the place. Then we get the idea. I think was it John Percy he's like the go-to guy in the Championship. Is he Daily Mail, John Percy, or Telegraph or something like that? He gets stuff leaked to him a lot, doesn't he, from agents and clubs, Percy. Fair play, he's very well connected. He's normally right. I'll give him that. And it's this weird statement that Rob Edwards would, quote, be interested in talking to Wolves about the job. Or Wolves would be interested in talking to Rob Edwards. And you kind of get this idea that the agents are putting it out there that, if we can do this, we will do this. And, maybe both parties want it to happen. Then you get Middlesbrough going on the defensive and saying, no, we're not going to give him permission to talk. Then we had yesterday, so Friday, the actual pre-match presser for Middlesbrough versus Birmingham, which is literally happening in 1.5 hours. And Rob Edwards is pulled from the presser. And everyone's like, oh, what's going on here? Because you could send Adi Vivash out, couldn't you, for him to do it and say, oh, Edwards is in a bad headspace or whatever, and all he's going to get asked about is the Wolves job, blah, blah, blah. But to completely just not have the presser said, oh, we're scrambling here, it looks like he probably wants out. So then we get to Saturday, and it leaked on Twitter then this morning that Edwards is not going to be in the dugout for Middlesbrough Birmingham. And then 24 minutes ago, so 1 p.m, so that's obviously scheduled, so they obviously knew this was happening through the morning. We get this. Middlesbrough Football Club have, subject to the completion of agreement with Wolverhampton Wanderers, given head coach Rob Edwards permission to speak to Wolves. We initially rejected an approach from Wolves on the basis that Rob signed a 3-year deal with Middlesbrough less than 6 months ago. Following discussions with Rob, we were disappointed to learn that he wanted to speak with Wolves regarding their head coach vacancy. We have now agreed terms with Wolves subject to completion of the relevant paperwork. Wow. So it's not just he's going to speak to them. The deal's done, basically. If they can dot I's and cross T's, Edwards is going to Wolves. First team coaches Adi Vivash, Harry Watlin and academy manager Craig Liddell will take charge of team affairs for Saturday's game. Again, I reiterate, this game is happening in 1.5 hours' time. So it's terrible preparation for Middlesbrough for this one. So that is the situation. And I mean, I'm sure I'm trying to keep up with the comments while we're live. They're all appearing up on the screen as we go. How do you feel about this one? Because I can sense that the views we're going to get the it's his club argument. He's from that part of the world, Rob Edwards. He played lots of games for Wolves. And there might be an argument that it'd be like me being offered the Ipswich Town job. You know, if that's your thing, that's your dream, wherever you are, whatever job you're in, if that job comes up and the time is right, you're going to go and you're going to do it. I can see a lot of people are going to call Rob Edwards disloyal and that he's not treated Steve Gibson very well here and Middlesbrough on the basis that Rob Edwards got relegated from the Premier League with Luton and then had a terrible time with Luton last season. And I agree with George Ellicks from Not the Top 20. We had him on the channel, did an interview, and he said, well, Ben, the thing is, people write off managers very, very quickly. That Rob Edwards did a great job at Forest Green, you know, in and out at Watford as quickly as tends to happen at Watford. Then he took what Nathan Jones had built and got Luton over the line and promoted in the Premier League. Didn't disgrace themselves in the Premier League. So effectively, he's had a bad 6 months as a manager. And he's still young and there's still plenty of years in the tank. Maybe plenty of skill there. But it does still take a club, you know, like Middlesbrough, who are always challenging in the Championship. Steve Gibson always backs the managers. They always go for it. They tend to be, if not challenging for the playoffs, at least in the top half. And, you know, if you've just been out of work and you had a really crappy time, and by the way, the club you leave goes on to do a double relegation and now is in League One, it's good that you get a chance. So I'm going to get the loyalty arguments, and I kind of understand them. So we had a comment earlier in the stream saying, oh, you would do the same if you got offered more money or whatever. I don't actually agree with that. I think it's a very one-dimensional look at life, that your job is completely defined by how much money you earn. It really is not. I know a lot of people look at jobs, and I remember talking to a friend of ours, and she was talking about her brother looking for jobs, and all she was saying is, oh, this one's this much money, this one's this much money. And I actually said, stop, hang on a minute. Right, where's the job? What are the people like? How's that going to work for you time-wise? What's the commute like? Where are you going to live? How's that going to work for your family? Are you going to have to move, etc., etc.? There is far more to a job. And I know football management's different than most of the jobs you or I or the people in the comments do. But there's more to a job than just the money, which does actually buy into the it's his club thing. Because, you know, if you're, for example, living up in the northeast of England, and you moved away from your family maybe, and you've got a chance to go back and re-establish roots in the place or the, you know, kind of rough area where you worked previously and maybe where you grew up, that you might really, really, really want to do that. So I can see all sides of this. I think Steve Gibson, and I get the statement says we're really disappointed given he just signed a 3-year contract. I think both things can be true, that you can be upset that you've given somebody a chance to get back in after a really bad time last season, and, you know, they're throwing it straight back. Is it the case that the only job he would have done this for is the Wolves job? We'll never know. You'll never know, will you, that if, I don't know, pick another Premier League, Crystal Palace job comes up, if Glasner goes on and does a bigger job, would he have taken the Palace job? And this is the other thing. We just have to say the respective positions of the two clubs. That Middlesbrough are up in the top 4 in the Championship and Wolves are down at the bottom. So there's every chance Wolves could be relegated. And Rob Edwards could be relegated from the Premier League again. what I will say is his timing is spot on because Borough are trending down. They've not, well, I think they've won like 2 games in 6 or 7, and they are trending down off a really good start. Yes, only down as far as 4th. Yes, Borough could still get promoted this season. Yes, somebody else could get Borough promoted, and you could have the, complete craziness. And this happened to Rob Edwards before, where he went out of Watford, then went to Luton, and then Luton got promoted in the same season. You could literally have, he goes out from Middlesbrough to Wolves, Wolves get relegated, and Borough get promoted, depending on who they get in. So it's an absolutely fascinating one. I can see all of your comments coming up there. There you go. There's one about John Eustace, where everyone said, "You're mad, Eustace. Blackburn are here in the table. Derby are here." But, as I say, sometimes there's more to it in terms of people's families and people's lives and what they actually want outside of a football league table and money. There are other things in lives to consider. However, I get it that as football fans, you look at the league tables, don't you? You look at it and think, what's the best position you can be in a manager, and where can you work? Last thing I'll say is the guys saying in the chat, the names being linked again are like Alex Neil, people mentioning Mark Robbins and whatnot there, which would be, more managers in high-powered positions in the Championship right at the moment. If it is the likes of Mark Robbins and Alex Neil being linked, they're currently 2nd and 5th, whilst Middlesbrough are 4th. So, yeah, looks like Rob Edwards is going to be the Wolves manager, and people are going to say I'm going to sit on the fence with my conclusion, but this is genuinely how I feel. I genuinely get it, that if that is your gig, if that is your club, if I don't know what his family arrangements are, who's living where, etc., with children, if that is the dream gig, you take it. But I also get you'd be really, really peeved if you'd given the guy a chance back in, given him a 3-year contract, and he's going to welch and run straight away. So that is my take on Rob Edwards' seemingly imminent move to Wolves. And yes, we could end the season with Rob Edwards back in the Championship. But if it's his dream gig, then who am I, or who are you, to say, well, he can't do that. But you can certainly be annoyed if you're a Middlesbrough fan, or indeed Steve Gibson. The managerial merry-go-round rolls on. There you go. Gary O'Neill to you can link them all together. We're going to stop because we've got to get back in to Blackburn versus Derby.